Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, let's start off global. Let's go straight to South America. I had to show you this amazing picture that was kind of widely shared in the day on Wednesday. It's a beautiful shelf cloud out ahead of what was probably a large mesoscale convective system, or squall line, and this was moving through parts of Buenos Aires province, and I think this is just one of the most dramatic views of a shelf cloud that I've seen. Now, that shelf cloud is indicative of what the pattern has been doing. So before I press play on the animation over there on the right, let's take a look at what's happened from December 1st through January 6th as we measure precipitation from satellite here. We can see that a big section of Argentina, especially, so Uruguay is here, and this is all Argentina, has seen some major precipitation events. We've kind of seen the pattern line itself up such that there's been a boundary, a front that keeps kind of pushing across the area. This is very typical for them in early summer here. So we can see a lot of places here getting quite a bit of rainfall. And the issue, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, is because you got to remember, going back to the start of this season, we were talking about how things were quite dry in certain parts of where Argentina grows a lot of soybeans and corn. So it's been an up, down year in terms of precipitation. Now, the monsoon, the Brazilian monsoon, before I click play, let's just talk about it, okay? Normally what happens is the flow of the atmosphere wants to do something like this. And if that circulation is relatively strong and we can bring enough high precipitable water air, that's air that's got a lot of moisture in it, deep, into the Amazon, what we get is we get something called the South American Convergence Zone setting up right in through there. And that is basically a circle around where Brazil's most productive area is in terms of growing corn, soybeans, and cotton. Now, what's happened is over the last month and a half or so, that circulation's weakened, which means it's still raining in there, but we're seeing less than average amounts. And instead, all of the higher precipitable water has been much further to the south, right here where I put this circle. We've been discussing this now for over a month. So as I click play, what you're going to see is most of the thunderstorm activity is happening down in this area. And you'll just see repeated big bands of storms. There goes another one right in through there that just keeps hammering parts of Argentina, Uruguay, and far southern Brazil, while the monsoon is just not soaking those fields in the main growing regions in central Brazil. And that's why, when we look here over the next 15 days, so I'm taking out to January 24th, we're still seeing the drier pattern in this area, where it's been much wetter just to the south of it, where that high precipitable water areas and the boundary keeps hitting the same area. So Argentina looks as though we've got a continuation of the wetter pattern. Brazil, the monsoon is weakened right now, and as a consequence, we're just seeing less than average precipitation. And we're starting to hear a lot more stories coming out of South America talking about how we're still waiting to plant some of the beans in northern Argentina. It's not that far out of normal, but still we're waiting to get those beans planted. And as the beans are being harvested, first crop beans here in parts of Mato Grosso do Sul, Mato Grosso, and even points a little bit east of there, we're talking about a very dry finish. And so we're seeing lower test weights. We're seeing, issues like that. So just want to kind of keep you updated on what we're seeing out of Brazil. Now, showing you just another amazing picture. This one was widely shared across the internet over the last couple of days here. And it's just a beautiful image because it looks as though the fields here in Colorado are like three-dimension, right? But what's going on here is this is a little bit of windblown snow, and where the soil is darker, it looks like as though it's casting a shadow, and it's just a beautiful view of what these fields look like. And that's what I want to start off with, is a discussion about snow. I'm just going to play this forward here starting 5 a.m. on Thursday morning. As we progress through the day on Thursday into Friday, we got a system that's emerging here in these central plains. And as you saw there in this animation, it's going to be spreading snow here from parts of Colorado all the way over to the Ohio River Valley, and then eventually here over into parts of Virginia, West Virginia. It doesn't look as though this particular system is going to be racing too far to the north, but in that area that I got circled, though, those two areas, we might potentially see quite a bit of snow. So let's talk about this particular system as it emerges in the day on Thursday, but really gets going Friday into Saturday morning. To do that, let's turn over to the European model. Let's go ahead and click play here and kind of see what's going on. So this is now valid noon on Friday, and this is where the system really starts to take shape. So this is Friday evening. Snow spreading from parts of Colorado, getting over into parts of Kansas, and then into Missouri. And then as we progress through the evening and overnight hours, which is good, that'll be colder time period, meaning the probability of snow here is real. This looks like snow spreading through Kansas, up into parts of Missouri, maybe even to southern Iowa, then certainly into Illinois, the southern 2/3 of Illinois, then spreading into parts of Indiana, Ohio, and then off to the east. Now, the particular wave that is creating this, in other words, the short wave in the jet stream, is going to try to eject pretty quickly out into the open ocean rather than race up the east coast. So its trajectory is more like this rather than like this. And that's why we don't see the major snows going up the east coast out of this particular system right here. So that's system number one. And so this is bringing, again, snow into this whole area. We're going to take a look at the snowfall totals in just a few seconds. Getting beyond that, getting you out to around the 16th, 17th, we start to see our next system emerging, maybe by the 18th in the Central Plains again. And we got to talk about what the trajectory of these next couple of big low pressure systems are going to be for the United States. We're going to get back to that in a second. Now, I'm going to go back, and I want you to now pay attention to what's going on in California. So here we are getting through the day on Friday. Deep coastal low off the west coast brings in round number one Saturday morning to the west coast. Look at this. Here comes second round here. This is now getting into Monday. Little cutoff low comes in by the time we get into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Look at that. We just keep seeing the California especially getting lashed here with multiple systems over the next 10 days or so. So when we put this all together, let's do snow first, then we'll take a look at total accumulated precipitation. What we've got here is, I want to focus mostly on this map. This is showing the European model and its 51 ensemble members picking up on the probability, now listen close, of at least 6 inches of snow. And we can see that in this section right in through here, that probability is relatively high. 50% is this color right there. So we can see there's a decent chance at getting some accumulating snow, and maybe 3+, maybe more than that, maybe in some locations over 6 inches of snow as we progress through the start of this weekend. But remember, the snow will spread, as we can see over here in the operational model, from parts of Colorado to Kansas, much of Missouri, Illinois, and then eventually setting itself up such that parts of Virginia, West Virginia, really getting over there near Washington, D.C., might be seeing some snow in here as well. So we've got quite a bit, but again, that wave ejects out into the open ocean rather than racing up the east coast, preventing a big nor'easter from occurring. So we've got the snow on tap, and I'll just tell you, I've purposefully not gone through and rebuilt the carburetor in my snowblower so that this will happen. So I'm doing everything I can for those snow lovers there in the middle part of the country. But I said, let's take a look at total accumulated precipitation. This gets you all the way out to next Thursday morning. We can see California getting quite a bit of precipitation. Again, that is needed. We see that storm trajectory of this particular system going something like this. So a lot of the precip is in this area, focused mainly here. So it looks maybe drier here as you get down toward the Gulf Coast. But because of that trajectory, look, the northern plains, Montana, Nebraska, getting all the way over to Wisconsin and back into the Dakotas, we do see a drier pattern over the next 7 to 10 days in that area. So I just want to kind of diagnose your total precipitation there. Now, if we look at some of the bigger players moving forward with our temperature and precipitation patterns, remember, we're currently in phase 8 of the MJO. That's typically a cold phase for the eastern half of the country. We certainly got a couple of big shots of cold air coming in. But the MJO goes toward its null phase, and the null phase is right here in this circle, okay? And then it looks as though it tries to emerge somewhere down here in phase 3, phase 4, or phase 5, but has very low amplitude, which means the thunderstorms that are happening where phase 3 is, which is in the Indian Ocean, phase 4 and phase 5, which moves over toward Australia, are not going to be deep convection, which means this pattern is not dominated by the MJO right now. Again, we've been talking about the stratospheric vortex split that's going on. So we had this sudden stratospheric warming here. That's going to be a key player for February. We have one pocket of the vortex here and another one elongated and very weak here over parts of Europe. That pattern will help to set things up at the end of January, beginning of February for the big change in temperature. So rather than showing you an animation of 500 millibar heights, I want to do this a little differently. I want to show you here what's going on Saturday morning. I then want to talk about next Wednesday, and then I want to talk about the following Monday. On top is the 500 millibar height pattern, and on the bottom, the map is not temperature, it is mean sea level pressure anomalies. What do we see? We see multiple troughs in the Gulf of Alaska slamming into the West Coast, primarily in California, over the next week or so. We will see a couple of shortwaves kind of come out on the south side of it. The first one is right here. That shortwave is the one that brings the snow from Colorado to the East Coast to start this weekend. And there is the reflection of that low pressure system that is tied to that trough. Now, as we have this much bigger trough come on shore here by the time we get to next Wednesday, look at the much below average pressures here. But I'm going to be watching this little shortwave right in through here, possibly initiating the development of a low pressure system next Wednesday. So I'm talking 16th, 17th, 18th, somewhere in the Central Plains. And if that happens, we could have enough cold air on tap that we do get another round of snow in this area. So I'm going to have to watch it carefully. I don't have details on this yet, but I'm just saying the models are getting pretty consistent with the development of a low somewhere in that area. And then again, when we get out to January 21st, what do we see? We see the flow pattern taking that trough, and as we've been talking about now for a couple of weeks, retreating it back over to the Aleutian Islands. That brings a ridge over the west coast and a broader trough here over the Central Plains. All right. Now that particular it's not snow pattern, but flow pattern, ridge or trough like that, that is going to signal quite a few low pressure systems that could be following this more central to north central track, somewhere like this. So what I'm telling you is, if you've been missing out on winter, I think in the eastern 2/3 of the country, things are going to be coming back kind of roaring here. And really, when we get into the last week of January, and as we talked about in last week's video, February and March, it looks as though the atmosphere is going to be favoring this flow pattern. And that trough there is substantial. And don't forget, see this over here? This signals split flow, strong subtropical jet. Now, what does all this mean? This means this area, I think, is going to be quite active in terms of storm track, potential for some snow, especially up the East Coast and Northeast, and some much cooler than average weather finally starting to settle in. But we got to get to that 3rd and 4th week of January and the beginning of February to see it. So what I'll finish with here is this animation of temperatures. And as I play this out, what you're going to see is that active pattern is going to put us on a bit of a roller coaster ride. At this point, over the next 10 to 15 days, I don't see any major time periods of sustained cold. Cold shots coming in with each one of these low pressure systems, but not sustained cold. But look at this. By the time I get us out to January 24th, you see the colder air finally pooling up here in parts of Canada? As that happens and the flow pattern goes back over to this split flow, so trough here, ridge there, that's going to just allow that colder air to kind of be used more in the eastern 2/3 of the country. So I think we're going to break out of this pattern by the time we get to that 3rd week, really the 4th week of January. And I think February is going to set up for a pretty decent, looks right now, as to be a pretty decent return of normal winter conditions. So with that, I'm going to wrap this one up. We at Nutrien Ag Solutions, thank you for your attention. Hope you look forward to our next video update coming out early Monday morning. Have a great week. Thank you.